Pope Francis celebrates 5 years as the head of the Catholic Church, and he is getting a vote of confidence from his predecessor, as well as the faithful around the globe. Vatican correspondent Juliet Linley will join us in studio in just a moment, but first, a look back at his leadership.
Fratelli e sorelle, buonasera.
With a simple good evening in St. Peter's Square, Pope Francis sets the tone for his papacy, with a sense of humility fitting for the first Jesuit pope in history. Reaching out to the suffering and forgotten has been one of the pillars of his pontificate, along with mercy and reform.
Because actually Francis has said, we know what the doctrine is, we know what the truth is, and we spent 30 years working that out, reformulating Christian tradition and doctrine in the light of Vatican Council. But now we have to take it on the road.
And Francis has done just that, in his backyard at the Vatican and beyond to those on the margins of society, including immigrants and prisoners.
In essence, the invitation of Francis to the Catholic Church was, you need to embody your relationship with Christ with other people. People have to see the mercy and compassion of God. That's what they first need to see. The rest comes after that.
A main priority for Jorge Bergoglio has been continuing the work of Benedict XVI in reforming the Vatican. Francis has created a council of cardinals to advise him on the overhaul, and he's launched a variety of financial reforms. Another big task for the Argentine, responding to the clergy sex abuse crisis. And on this milestone, Pope Francis is getting support from his predecessor. In a letter, Pope Benedict dismisses critics of Francis, who say the Holy Father has no theological depth and represents a rupture from his own papacy. Benedict points to what he calls an internal continuity between the two pontificates.
Vatican correspondent Juliet Linley joins us for a change here in Washington, D.C. in studio. Welcome to Washington, Juliet.
Thank you, Lauren. So wonderful to be here.
Let's talk about Pope Francis and the first Jesuit to be Pope. What are the other firsts that we have seen from Francis?
So many firsts, Lauren. I mean, he was the first Latin American priest and the first non-European in 1,300 years. He was the first Pope to meet the Russian Patriarch Kirill in over 1,000 years. And for you Americans, he was the first to address the U.S. Capitol, the first Pope to do that.
I was there when he did that, and it was very impressive. Now, you live in Rome. You cover the Vatican. Tell me what his daily routine is like. Do you bump into him every day? Or
No, I don't bump into him, but he did choose, as you know, not to live in the beautiful papal apartments, and he chose to live in the residence of Santa Marta, where other clergy members live. And he has a very simple routine. As far as I understand, he wakes up around 4:30, very early riser. He prays. He prepares his homily at the Santa Marta chapel, where he says Mass every morning. And then if it's not a Wednesday, he will then meet perhaps visiting dignitaries. He will meet bishops who are there for ad limina. And if it is a Wednesday, he will go into St. Peter's Square or into the Aula Paolo VI, and he will meet pilgrims for the general audience. Then he takes a nap in the afternoon after lunch.
A little siesta. We all should have that.
He has more meetings. He prays the rosary. He prays Vespers. You know, he puts great importance on the rosary. And he goes to sleep around 10, I understand.
Francis, who once said that he thought this would be a very short papacy, is 81 and still going strong. Do you think he would ever resign?
How about that? I mean, in 2015, he did indicate that Pope Benedict had opened the door to the possibility of a resignation. Now, who knows with Pope Francis? As for his health, you know, we know that he has limited use of one lung. He suffers from sciatica, but otherwise, it's not really an issue. In this whole papacy, we haven't had any medical crisis. If anything, we talk more about Pope Benedict's health.
When I was involved in his visit, when he came here in 2015, he was just on a breakneck schedule. He must have had, I don't know, 7 stops in a day, and you just kept going and going and going. So what do you think the highlights will be coming up on that crazy agenda of his?
From now on.
From now on.
Well, we certainly have this very weekend coming up. He's visiting for the Padre Pio's death. He will be visiting Pietrelcina, and we will certainly be covering that for you in News Nightly. And then coming up we have, well, he's going to Geneva, we just heard, in June. And he'll be there for the 50th anniversary for the Universal Churches. And then in the summer, there's the World Meeting of Families in Ireland. And you know, it goes on and on. In September, he's going to the Baltic states. Right. And then he has the canonization of Paul VI supposedly in October.
I'm just tired listening to all of this.
Right?
Okay. Well, you're going to be here all week, and so we will see you back on set here this week, and we're just so happy to have you.
Thank you, Lauren. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good.
Thank you.
Juliet Linley, Vatican correspondent in the house.